Stop scrolling right now because what you are about to hear could completely change the way you look at Australian dollar coins forever. Most people think modern coins are worth face value. But hidden among everyday change are Australian $1 coins that have sold for thousands and in some cases shocked collectors across the world. These coins are not just metal. They are rare moments in Australian history, minting mistakes, limited releases, forgotten designs, and quiet errors that slipped past the system and became legends. Today, we are counting down the top 10 most valuable Australian dollar coins ever made, coins that collectors hunt aggressively, coins that sat unnoticed in drawers, jars, and wallets for years before exploding in value. Imagine holding a coin that was once ignored at a checkout, now worth more than a luxury vacation. Imagine a simple kangaroo dollar that turned into a four-figure surprise, from rare mint marks to ultra-low mintage commemoratives and jaw-dropping errors. Each coin on this list has a story of chance, timing, and history colliding. Stay with me until the end, because the number one Australian dollar coin is so rare that most Australians have never seen one in real life, and once you know these coins, you will never look at loose change the same way again. Imagine holding a small golden piece of Australia's legacy in the palm of your hand, a coin minted in 1999 that quietly carries the story of a nation's growth, its culture, its values, and its extraordinary journey from a rugged continent to a modern world power. Imagine a coin that might look simple at first glance, but when you trace its history, its purpose, its creation, and the people behind it, you discover a treasure chest of stories, each more fascinating than the last. Welcome to coins where history comes alive through the metals we often overlook, and today we dive deep into the unforgettable tale of the Australian $1 coin of 1999, a coin that marked a year of transition, pride, craftsmanship, and national identity. A coin whose origins stretch back to the birth of decimal currency and whose presence today reminds collectors, historians, and everyday citizens of what Australia once was and what it dreamed to become. This is the story of the 1999 Australian $1 coin, a journey that begins long before the year 1999, long before the Royal Australian Mint struck its first disc of aluminum bronze. It begins with the decision to change the entire Australian monetary system in 1966, when the nation chose to abandon pounds, shillings, and pence and move into the age of decimal currency. This shift reshaped Australian commerce and laid the foundation for the $1 denomination decades later. As the Australian economy grew, as inflation changed the value of money, and as national symbols evolved, the need for a new $1 coin became clear. And so in 1984, the first Australian $1 coin was born, replacing the $1 note and instantly becoming a hallmark of Australian pocket change, carrying on its obverse the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, and on its reverse the iconic mob of kangaroos designed by Stuart Devlin, the visionary who helped define Australian numismatic art. By the time we reach 1999, the Australian $1 coin was already a national symbol, circulating in every corner of the continent, from the bustling streets of Sydney to the vast outback plains. And in that particular year, the world stood at the edge of a new millennium. A wave of anticipation swept across nations, and Australia was no exception. The Royal Australian Mint approached the year with commitment, precision, and artistic pride, continuing its mission to produce coins that were not simply tools of trade but reflections of national heritage and craftsmanship. The 1999 $1 coin carried the familiar and beloved kangaroo design, but each coin minted that year represented another chapter in a long evolving story of Australian identity. Coins minted that year came in various mintages for circulation and sets, with the precision of modern machinery and the expertise of experienced engravers who ensured each detail of the kangaroos leaping across the surface remained crisp, bold, and unmistakably Australian. As the coin entered circulation, it passed through countless hands, paying for morning coffees, long road trips, groceries, and memories, each interaction adding silent value to the story of the year 1999. And as time went on, collectors began to study the coin, more deeply examining its strike quality, edge-reading metal composition, and any variants that might exist. No major errors for this specific year became mainstream, but that did not stop collectors from cherishing the coin as a milestone piece. Within the long continuum of Australian currency, for many, the 1999 $1 coin symbolizes not just a unit of exchange but a representation of Australia on the threshold of a new era. A coin minted during a time when technology, culture, and national pride were shifting. Shapith aluminum bronze alloy, a mixture of copper, zinc, and a touch of nickel, gave the coin its warm golden tone, a color that would become instantly recognizable across generations. And on the obverse, Queen Elizabeth II appeared in the Ian Rank Broadley portrait, introduced in 1999, itself a fresh and updated depiction of the monarch. That year was significant because the new effigy brought sharp, realistic detail and defined a new artistic standard across the Commonwealth. This makes the 1999 dollar coin doubly iconic. Not only does it mark a turn in the timeline of Australian currency, but it also serves as the debut year for a portrait that would appear on Australian coins for 2 decades. Historians and collectors often point to this effigy change as one of the most defining numismatic events of the late 20th century. As we dive deeper into the making of the 1999 coin, we encounter the story of the Royal Australian Mint's innovation, the expansion of its machinery, the modernization of its production techniques, and its growing global reputation for quality. When the Mint struck these coins, the precise balance of pressure, metal flow, and die alignment ensured that each piece met strict standards of durability and aesthetics. The design elements required perfect synchronization. The raised edges had to hold up against years of circulation. The kangaroos needed crisp definition under magnification, and the smooth surface around the design had to remain clean and reflective before entering the rough world of circulation. 1999 $1 coin also reminds us how coins travel further than most people ever will. From family road trips across the Northern Territory to backpackers exploring Queensland to coins exchanged in markets, festivals, and events, these coins witness the pulse of Australian life, each a tiny artifact of a larger cultural rhythm. And for collectors, creating a 2-hour deep dive into the story of this coin means exploring its economic impact, its production numbers, its role in commemorative sets, and the subtle artistic choices behind its design, which taken together create an extraordinary portrait of the Australian year. 1999, the coin represents stability, familiarity, and national pride, and while newer designs would come in later years, including commemorative issues celebrating Indigenous Australians' military service, Australian wildlife, and significant events, the 1999 Kangaroo Dollar remains a timeless classic, connecting everyday Australians to their past, and their minting heritage today continues to circulate, though fewer and fewer show up in pristine condition, making mint state pieces more sought after with each passing year as collectors seek to capture a perfect example of a coin that represents a turning point in Australian numismatic history. Imagine holding a small piece of metal that hides a story far bigger than its size, a story of design evolution, national identity, minting technology, collector mysteries, and the shifting landscape of Australian currency. And now picture the 1994 Australian $1 coin, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance, but when you dig into its creation, its background, its symbolism, and the era it came from, you uncover a journey that stretches across decades, shaping how a nation looked at its own money and how collectors today see value far beyond face worth. And in this video, we are diving deep into the complete history of the 1994 Australian $1 coin, exploring how it was made, why it was made, what sets it apart from other years, how it connects back to the origins of the $1 denomination, and how it fits into the larger story of Australian numismatics. And before our exploration is over, you will understand every detail, from its metal composition to minting processes, special strikes, errors, varieties, circulation behavior, cultural importance, and its lasting role in today's collector market. Because this is not just a coin, this is a time capsule born in a pivotal moment for Australian coinage. And the story begins long before 1994, when the $1 coin was first introduced in 1984, replacing the $1 note as part of a major currency shift. Driven by the need for durability, cost efficiency, and modernization, and by the time we reached 1994, the coin had already spent a decade in circulation, proving itself as a sturdy workhorse of everyday transactions, and yet the 1994 issue carries its own identity. Shaped by the design of Stuart Devlin, the iconic kangaroo motif, and the way Australian society and the Royal Australian Mint were evolving through the early 90s, and as we move through this narrative, you will see how the coin sits at the intersection of artwork, economics, metallurgy, and national branding. And to understand this coin, we must start with its visual personality, the 5 bounding kangaroos that dance across the reverse, a design chosen not just to represent Australia, but to create a sense of movement, energy, and national livelihood, sculpted with precision that challenged the minting technology of the era. And on the obverse side, we see the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Raphael Maklouf, used from 1985 until 1998. And the 1994 $1 coin falls right in the middle of that period, capturing the regal style and detailed rendering of the monarch that collectors now instantly associate with coins of this era. And behind this portrait lies a world of change, because the early 90s saw updates in mint operations, die maintenance, and metal sourcing, which allows us to explore why some 1994 coins appear sharper, deeper, or more defined than others. And as we unfold the minting history, we find that 1994 saw regular circulation strikes without major commemorative designs yet. This year remains important because it reflects stability in the denomination and consistency in the Royal Australian Mint's output, while also providing fertile ground for variety hunters who seek die cracks, cuds, misaligned strikes, and other mint errors that raise the value of otherwise common coins. And then we look at mintage numbers, which help build a clear picture of how many 1994 $1 coins entered circulation, and why the year is considered relatively typical, but still historically relevant in understanding the broader pattern of production through the 90s. And now imagine the coin entering circulation in the mid-90s, during a period of economic restructuring and national development, and as people went about their daily routines, buying groceries, paying for petrol, and handling cash, the $1,994 quietly passed through millions of hands, absorbing the fingerprints, stories, and energy of a changing Australia. And with every exchange, the coin became more than currency. It became part of a collective experience representing stability, reliability, and Australian identity. And as we continue traveling through this script, we dive into how the alloy of copper, aluminum, and nickel gave the coin durability, and why this choice of metal was essential for heavy circulation coins, and how it influenced the longevity that collectors now see when examining 1994 dollars decades later. And the story also brings us into the fascinating realm of numismatic valuation, where collectors ask questions like which errors are valuable, how do grades affect price, what makes a high-grade $1,994 rare, and why certain mint state examples are surprisingly difficult to find despite high mintage numbers. And by breaking down auction results, collector trends, and market behavior, we begin to see how a coin from an ordinary year can still command attention when conditions, scarcity, and demand collide. And as we move deeper into the history, we also explore how storage conditions, circulation patterns, and environmental exposure create variations in color, tone, wear, and surface quality, making each surviving 1994 $1 coin a unique artifact. And toward the later chapters of this long narrative, we will examine how the 1994 coin compares to surrounding years, including the commemorative heavy 1990s, which introduced designs such as the 1993 Landcare dollar and the 1995 United Nations dollar, helping us understand what makes the regular 1994 issue a foundational piece in any timeline of Australian dollar coinage. And from there we examine broader cultural and economic context, including the shift toward electronic payments, the evolving role of coins in commerce, and the way collectors seek physical currency as a connection to national history and identity. And by the time we reach the conclusion of this to our deep dive, you will see the 1994 Australian $1 coin as more than an everyday circulation piece. You will see it as a narrative of craftsmanship, national expression, technological precision, and the ever-changing landscape of Australian currency. And through this entire journey, the coin transforms from metal into meaning, proving that even the most ordinary coin can tell an extraordinary story if you know where to look. Imagine holding a small piece of metal that carries within it the legacy of a continent, the story of a nation, and the silent journey of millions of hands that shaped Australia's modern identity. Now imagine that this small coin, minted in 1996, seems ordinary at first glance, but once you dig deeper you discover that it is actually a window into the evolution of Australian currency, political change, technological progress, and the hidden world of numismatic treasures. This is not just a coin, this is a time capsule, and today we are unlocking every layer of its creation, its purpose, its secrets, and its value in a way that will completely transform the way you look at the coins in your pocket. Welcome to the complete, detailed, professional history of the Australian $1 coin from 1996, a coin that reflects the pulse of its era, the innovations of its minting process, and the cultural symbolism that stands behind every design choice. The story of the Australian $1 coin, minted in 1996, begins long before the year itself, because to truly understand this coin, we must travel back to the roots of Australian decimal currency and explore how the introduction of the $1 denomination in 1984 reshaped the everyday transactions and numismatic landscape of the country. The 1996 issue carries forward that legacy, but it also reflects the specific moment in Australia's social, economic, and minting history that defines the mid-90s, an era of technological refinement and consistent national symbolism. The $1 coin, including the 1996 issue, is struck in aluminum bronze, a distinctive alloy composed primarily of copper with aluminum and a small amount of nickel. This alloy not only gives the coin its iconic golden color, but also offers strength, durability, and corrosion resistance, making it ideal for the high circulation demands of Australian currency. By the time 1996 arrived, this alloy choice had already proven to be successful, but continuous improvements in striking technology allowed the Royal Australian Mint to create more consistent, sharper designs and better edge quality for the coins produced that year. At the heart of the $1 coin is the iconic mob of ruse design created by the legendary Australian sculptor Stuart Devlin, whose work defines modern Australian coinage. Devlin crafted this design to represent movement, energy, and the wildlife most closely associated with the Australian identity. The 1996 coin continued the tradition of featuring the 5 kangaroos in varying poses, symbolizing the vitality of the country and the unique nature of its fauna. The detail in the kangaroo textures, the leaps, and the composition all reflect Devlin's mastery of capturing lifelike motion in a static metal form, and by 1996 the striking process allowed even finer fidelity to this artwork. In the obverse side, the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II was the Raphael Makhlouf effigy, which had been introduced in 1985 and continued through to 1998. This effigy, known for its more formal and sculptural style, shows the Queen wearing the royal diadem and has a more pronounced three-dimensional appearance than earlier portraits. For collectors, the presence of the Makhlouf effigy on the 1996 dollar places it firmly within a memorable chapter of Commonwealth portrait transitions. Each portrait cycle on Australian coins marks an era, and this one is strongly associated with late 20th century design aesthetics and minting style. The Royal Australian Mint in Canberra produced the majority of the 1996 $1 coins, and circulation numbers for this year were relatively stable compared to earlier spikes in mintage. While not considered an extremely rare year in general, Circulation. The 1996 issue still holds significance because of its role in the ongoing demand for $1 coins in daily transactions during a period of expanding economic activity. Coins from this year were used extensively across the nation, from large urban centers to remote regional communities where cash still played a dominant role in trade and transport. Interesting, 1996 marks a phase when attention to coin quality and consistency increased noticeably as the mint implemented advanced dye maintenance procedures, improved metal preparation, and more refined press calibration, all of which contributed to the production of cleaner, sharper coins for this year. This means that high-grade, uncirculated, or mint-state examples of the 1996 $1 coin are generally easier to find compared to some other years, but pristine examples still hold collector interest, particularly when graded by professional service. Another layer of the 1996 coin's history is tied to the Australian Mint's growing involvement with international minting contracts and technological development. During the 90s, the Mint was investing heavily in improved machinery, dye production, and blank preparation techniques, and even though these developments were not always visible to the public, they influenced every coin minted that year, including the standard circulating $1 coin. These background innovations helped shape the long-term stability and uniformity of Australian coinage, which collectors value for its reliability and high production standards. As we continue deeper into the coin story, it is important to consider the context of Australia's mid-90s economy, a period of recovery, growth, and expanding globalization. National symbols such as currency played an important role in reinforcing unity and identity while the country increasingly participated in global markets. The presence of the kangaroo design on the $1 coin served as a reminder of Australia's natural heritage and a cultural anchor in a rapidly shifting world. When you held a $1,996 coin, you held a piece of national branding identity and continuity amid broader change. But beyond its cultural value, the coin also has a practical and collectible dimension. The 1996 $1 coin in typical circulated condition is common, but examples that are in high mint state grades can draw premiums in the numismatic market. Coins grading Ms. 6.4 and above show brilliant luster, sharp details, minimal contact marks, and well-preserved surfaces. Collectors often appreciate these qualities because they highlight the craftsmanship of the Royal Australian Mint, while representing the coin in near original striking condition. The coin's edge, reading composition, weight, and diameter stayed consistent with the long-standing $1 specifications, which ensured compatibility for vending machines, transport systems, and other coin-operated devices of the time. This functional consistency demonstrates how much thought and engineering goes into even simple circulating coins, because each year's production must integrate seamlessly into national infrastructure. This means the 1996 coin not only carries symbolic value, but also plays a technical role in the smooth operation of daily life across Australia. Another fascinating aspect of the 1996 $1 coin history is the absence of special commemorative designs for that year. Unlike certain other years with limited editions or special themes, the 1996 circulation coin remains purely the classic mob of ruse design, which makes it an interesting study year for collectors who want to focus on minting quality die states and strike variations without the distractions of alternate commemorative designs. This allows the 1996 year to stand as a pure representation of Australian minting in the mid-90s across the years since its release. The 1996 $1 coin has traveled through millions of hands and pockets, appearing in shops, schools, rail stations, airports, markets, and businesses. Each coin carries an invisible record of the nation's daily life, movements, and exchanges. And now, decades later, these coins are often rediscovered by collectors who realize that even common years have stories worth exploring. Some coins show heavy wear, indicating long circulation, while others survived in change jars, drawers, collections, or forgotten rolls, remaining in excellent condition. The Global numismatic community also plays a role in the modern life of the 1996 coin, as Australian coinage has gained popularity in international markets. Collectors from Europe, Asia, and North America increasingly seek classic circulating issues, like this one, for their beauty, design, and representation of Australia's culture. This international attention gives even regular year coins like the 1996 issue a broader significance. In global collecting circulasis, we pull all of these layers together. We see the Australian $1 coin of 1996 as far more than simple currency. It is a representation of a stable minting era, a moment in national identity, a piece of economic infrastructure, and a physical artifact that continues to fascinate collectors worldwide. Exploring its journey gives us insight into the craftsmanship, artistry, symbolism, and engineering that shape every coin produced by the Royal Australian Mint. And so, as the story of this coin unfolds across 2 hours of exploration, we find that even the most ordinary object can hold extraordinary meaning when you dive into its origins, its design, its purpose, and its legacy. This is the complete story of the 1996 Australian $1 coin, a small but powerful reminder of how history, culture, and innovation can be captured in a single golden circle of metal. Imagine holding a small golden coin in your hand and feeling like you are gripping a silent witness to a year filled with change, challenge, resilience, and national pride. Because today we dive deep into the world of the Australian $1 coin. From 2011, a coin that countless people spent, saved, lost, found, and forgot, yet within its metallic surface waits a sweeping story of minting mastery, national identity, and the evolution of a currency that has traveled across pockets, purses, and places you would never imagine. And as we open this journey, you are about to experience the hidden life of a coin that may seem ordinary at first glance, but unfolds into a truly extraordinary chapter in Australian numismatic history. This is not just a discussion and not just a breakdown. This is a full-scale journey across time as we uncover how the 2011 Australian $1 coin came to exist, why it was minted, the world it was born into, and the legacy it carries today in the sprawling story of Australian currency. The year 2011 in Australia was a time marked by recovery after intense natural disasters and a period where the Royal Australian Mint continued its mission of crafting coins that not only served as currency but also represented national spirit, tradition, and precision. The Australian $1 coin, first introduced in 1984, had already established itself as an iconic piece of the nation, featuring Stuart Devlin's timeless design of bounding kangaroos, which by 2011 had become a symbol instantly recognized across the country. As soon as the golden edge caught the slightest light, the coin released its signature glow, and this glow became an everyday reminder of Australian identity and craftsmanship. As millions of these coins moved from one hand to another across the continent, when the Royal Australian Mint began striking the 2011 edition, it continued the long-running standard production that Australians trusted for decades, maintaining the familiar alloy composition known as aluminum bronze, a unique blend that created the warm, distinctive coloration, giving the coin both durability and a sense of heritage. The minting process itself began with blank blankets cut with exact precision, heated, cleaned, and stamped under powerful pressure to bring the raised kangaroo design and the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II to life. Once struck, each coin bore the official inscriptions, including the year 2011, the name Australia, and the familiar royal effigy that had marked decades of coinage across the Commonwealth. While the standard business strike $1 coins of 2011 maintained the kangaroo design, collectors watched closely for variations, mint set editions, and any small details that could make certain coins more desirable in the future. Mint set versions for 2011 were polished with higher quality surfaces, providing sharper details, cleaner edges, and stronger visual texture. Compared to circulation currency, these specially prepared coins often reflect the highest level of craftsmanship of the Royal Australian Mint, giving collectors an elevated version of a coin they see in everyday life. Beyond the minting techniques, the $20,111 coin carried the weight of the time it represented. As Australians moved into a new decade facing economic shifts and natural challenges, such as major floods in Queensland, which became one of the most defining national events of the year. Like 2011 made ordinary objects like coins feel connected to moments of real human emotion and struggle. Each coin minted and circulated during that time became part of millions of personal stories, whether dropped into donation boxes used to buy essentials or saved as part of emergency funds during hard days. Circulation patterns of the Australian $1 coin during 2011 were affected by economic behaviors such as shifts in spending, saving, and national recovery efforts. Coins that might appear insignificant at first glance traveled across states and territories, moving through small towns with red dusty roads as easily as they passed through bustling city centers like Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth. The physical journey of these coins mirrors the pathways of people who experienced and shaped those moments in Australian history. As time moved forward, the $20,111 coin gradually became a piece of interest for collectors, not because of any major rare errors or unusual design changes, but because every year of Australian currency builds a place in long-term collections, and the 2011 year stands as a marker of resilience and continuity in both national history and the minting tradition carried forward by the Royal Australian Mint. Collectors often look for crisp examples, coins with minimal wear or coins preserved in mint sets to capture the clean, elegant shine that best represents the craftsmanship of that year. Portrait of Queen Elizabeth II featured on the 2011 coin was the in-rank broadly effigy, which became one of the most widely recognized designs on Australian currency. Introduced in 1999 and used until 2018, this portrait emphasized a realistic, strong depiction of the Queen, unlike earlier versions. And on the $20,111 coin, this design cemented its place as part of a numismatic era defined by clarity and modern representation. The combination of the rank broadly portrait and the classic Devlin kangaroo design created a coin that blended heritage and contemporary artistry into a single circular canvas. Kangaroo design also held special meaning during the early 2010s, representing the essence of Australian wildlife, landscape, and cultural symbolism. The leaping kangaroos had been chosen decades earlier to convey movement, energy, and national character, and by 2011 the design was firmly embedded in the collective visual identity of the nation, a steady reminder of where Australia had been and where it continued to move forward. As the years passed, the 2011 $1 coin quietly transitioned from everyday currency to a collectible piece, gaining value mainly in pristine condition. While circulating examples remain common, the story behind the coin becomes richer with time, and this depth gives your audience an engaging long-form narrative filled with meaning. Imagine holding a coin that looks ordinary to the untrained eye, yet hides a story filled with national pride, artistic intention, historical depth, and the quiet brilliance of a mint that constantly reshaped Australia's identity through metal. This is the world of the Australian $1 coin, and today we travel deep into the life of the 2002 issue, a coin that sits between major eras of design evolution, production philosophy, and national sentiment. And the moment you flip it in your hand, you are not just holding currency. You are holding a fragment of a year that carried its own atmosphere, its own economic currents, and its own artistic pulse. And to understand the 2002 Australian $1 coin is to explore a miniature time capsule of a nation in transition, a nation reflecting on stability, prosperity, and the role of its ever-growing minting technologies. So welcome to a journey that digs beneath the surface of a coin many people overlook. You are about to discover the long-hidden chronicle of one of Australia's modern numismatic milestones, and by the time this story ends, you will never look at a $2002 $1 coin the same way again. Because today we dive into its origins, minting process, cultural value, variations, errors, background, legacy, and every fine detail that could fill not just a 2-hour video but a full museum gallery if written out. And fuller story begins With the Australian minting tradition, itself a tradition that took a decisive turn in 1984 when the $1 coin replaced the $1 note, marking a new era of durability, efficiency, and national symbolism. The kangaroo design by Stuart Devlin quickly became a modern icon. And year after year, the Royal Australian Mint continued striking coins that carried the same design, but each year held the fingerprint of its time, the state of the die technology, the level of public demand, the nature of commemorative releases, and the economic conditions that influenced production volumes. So when we reach the year 2002, we stand at a place where Australia was experiencing both global shifts and domestic stability, and the Royal Australian Mint was moving deeper into technological refinement and precision, and the result was a $1 coin that may appear similar to its predecessors, yet carries its own identity in the grand timeline of minting history. In 2002, Australia did not release a circulating commemorative design for the $1 denomination, which meant that the classic mob of ruse design returned for general circulation. But what makes the 2002 coin stand out is not a flashy one-year artwork, but the scale, quality, and distribution pattern of its production, along with the collected variations and the striking characteristics that year's minting conditions produced. The standard design features the iconic group of bounding kangaroos, arranged in a lively composition capturing movement, national wildlife identity, and the artistic signature Devlin embedded in the piece. But the minting story goes far beyond the final look, because the pressure, temperature, and metal blend all contributed to the way the 2002 coins aged over time. The presence of certain dye fatigue markers, the clarity of the frosted details, and even small shifts caused by dye polishing cycles all created subtle differences that collectors today work carefully to catalog. Material of the 2002 Australian $1 coin remains the familiar aluminum bronze alloy composed of copper, aluminum, and a small amount of nickel, chosen for its durability, corrosion resistance, and distinctive golden color. But in 2002, the Mint slightly adjusted its production rhythm in response to demand cycles and budgetary considerations, creating a year where the mintage number was meaningful, not because it was extremely low, but because it represented a stable period between major commemorative production highs and lows. And that context matters, because the 2002 circulation dollar serves as a bridge between highly sought-after special issues of the early 2000s and the later explosive array of commemoratives that took over the 2010s and beyond. Collectors today note that the 2002 $1 coin is known for its sharp strike quality, especially on early die states where the kangaroo fur texture, tail lines, and foreground depth appear crisp and well raised on some pieces. The letter edges in Australia and Elizabeth to stand taller and cleaner due to the healthy condition of the dyes used early in the minting cycle, while mid-cycle pieces sometimes show softer edges, mild dye fatigue, and slight flattening that gives clues to the progression of striking conditions across the year. This kind of detail is what transforms a simple coin into a document of its own creation process, where each variation tells part of the story of the minting machinery, the workload, and the transition from fresh dyes to worn ones. The verse of the 2002 coin features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Ian Rank Broadley, marking one of the defining portrait eras of modern Australian coinage. This portrait is notable for its more realistic depiction of the monarch, with sharper facial contours, a stronger jawline, and a three-dimensional depth that set it apart from the earlier portraits. And this realism gave the 2002 $1 coin a more contemporary and internationally aligned appearance. Rank Broadley's design was meant to show maturity and presence, and because the year 2002 sits well within the lifespan of this portrait, it represents the style at a time when it had already become deeply integrated into Australian circulating coin identity. The date placement under the portrait offers a clear indication of the year, while the rim structure shows the classic width that collectors use to identify variations in certain stroke errors, such as off-center strikes, rim clips, and broad strikes that appear occasionally. In 2002-ish ways, another layer of the 2002 coin story lies in the errors and varieties that naturally emerged during the minting process, and certain pieces have since become collectible treasures. The 2002 year is known among specialists for presenting occasional die cracks, cuts, filled dies, and off-center strikes, though none are as frequent as some of the later 2000s issues. What makes 2002 errors interesting is the precision baseline that the Royal Australian Mint had established. By that point, meaning that any noticeable deviation stands out more dramatically and becomes more appealing to collectors. For example, a rim cut on a 2002 $1 coin shows a chunky raised area near the edge where a piece of the die broke away, creating an imperfect but fascinating raised blob of metal that records a moment of die damage that the Mint could not predict. And off-center strikes show how the plankette was not properly seated, resulting in a shifted design that exposes blank metal at one side. These errors are windows into the mechanical world of coin creation, where thousands of perfect strikes are punctuated by rare imperfect moments that collectors seek out with enthusiasm. In circulation, the 2002 $1 coin played its part in everyday commerce, traveling through cash registers, pocket change, vending machines, and public life across Australia, and as years passed, its edges developed wear patterns that also tell their own story. Because the aluminum bronze alloy darkens with oxidation exposure, the older coins acquire a deeper tone compared to fresh mint pieces, and this patina adds character, showing the journey a coin has traveled across the continent. The 2002 coins also carry slight shifts in overall tone depending on the storage environment, circulating pots, and exposure to moisture or heat, meaning that no two aged coins look exactly the same. Each one gains a unique signature through its circulation life. What gives the 2002 $1 coin its lasting significance is not just rarity or dramatic design, but the role it plays in the evolving narrative of Australian currency. It marks a year of continuity, a year where the system worked smoothly, a year where quality production met stable demand, and a year in which the national identity kept moving forward under the familiar symbol of the kangaroo and the reigning portrait of the monarch. The coin is a reflection of Australia's economic confidence early in the 2000s, and a representation of how the Royal Australian Mint maintained excellence even in years without spotlight commemoratives, and that continuity shows the discipline and craft of mint workers, engravers, die technicians, and production experts who ensured that every coin leaving the mint was a worthy emblem of the country. Today, collectors view the 2002 Australian $1 coin as a dependable mid-range collectible, a coin that is widely available yet rewarding to study for its varieties, errors, condition grades, and subtle strike differences. High-grade uncirculated pieces, especially those with perfect luster, sharp detail, and no marks, attract strong interest among numismatists who aim to build complete yearly sets, and long-term investors recognize that stable years like 2002 form the backbone of long-run collecting portfolios, where consistency in quality makes the year valuable for future comparative study, especially as later decades enhance the importance of earlier mint sequence. When discussing grading, the 2002 coin follows the same standards as others in its series. Mint state pieces with full cartwheel luster and crisp kangaroo outlines are prized, while those with bag marks or surface contacts still hold appeal but fall into mid-tier grading. Evaluations, proofs, and special mint sets issued for collectors in 2002 show exceptional mirrored fields, frosted devices, and precision detailing that represent the highest level of mint artistry for the year, and these collectible sets remain strong favorites for those who appreciate the fine craft of polished dies, meticulous striking, and controlled production environments. As we continue our journey into the world of the 2005 Australian $1 coin, we step deeper into the unfolding narrative of how this coin not only entered circulation, but also became an essential marker of the evolving Australian identity. Because currency is never just metal, it is the language of a nation silently expressing its values, history, and ambitions through every strike, and the 2005 $1 coin is no exception to this rule, as its story expands into layers of meaning, craftsmanship, and cultural significance that stretch far beyond its practical purpose in everyday life. And to truly appreciate this coin, we must return to the heart of Australia's minting system. The Royal Australian Mint, where the atmosphere of 2005 was charged with progress, innovation, and the ongoing mission to refine the national coinage into forms that stood the test of time and the test of constant circulation. Within those minting halls, giant presses thundered day and night, transforming humble metal blanks into gleaming pieces of Australian identity, and each blank that became a 2005 $1 coin went through a journey of heating, shaping, striking, cooling, and rigorous examination, ensuring that every detail of the famous kangaroo design emerged crisp, alive, and full of motion, reflecting the energy of a land defined by its unique wildlife and boundless spirit. And in this year, the minting process carried with it a blend of tradition and modern technology, honoring the original vision of Stuart Devlin while pushing forward with upgraded machinery that improved die longevity, striking consistency, and mass production capability, allowing the mint to meet the growing demand for circulating coins across every corner of the nation. And as these coins were produced, they carried into circulation not only their physical form, but also the aura of the time in which they were created, a period when Australia was strengthening its economic position, expanding global partnerships, and modernizing infrastructure. And through all this, the $1 coin became a dependable companion of the economy, a sturdy workhorse of daily commerce passed from hand to hand, with a reliability that paper banknotes could never match in harsh or demanding environments. And as these coins entered circulation, they spread across an immense landscape, traveling through major cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, into vast outback regions, through ports, schools, markets, transport hubs, small family businesses, and massive corporate centers, linking people from all walks of life through the simple act of exchange. And while circulation expanded, collectors began paying close attention to the 2005 issue, seeking not only pristine mint state examples, but also scanning for rare anomalies that emerged from the massive volume of coins produced during that year, because where there is mass production, there is always the potential for unique errors, tiny deviations that transform an ordinary coin into a prized collectible. And among these sought-after details were off-center strikes, where the design sat slightly misplaced on the coin, creating a visual imbalance that collectors found both fascinating and rare, and die cracks, where faint raised lines appeared on the coin's surface, indicating the stress and wear on minting dies, and cuds where pieces of broken die created unusual lumps or missing design sections that captured the attention of numismatic experts. And as these stories circulated within the collecting world, the 2005 Australian $1 coin and its place as a subject of ongoing study, debate, and admiration, because collectors know that every coin has a hidden story, and the deeper you dig, the more mysteries you uncover, from the way the metal alloy was sourced to the exact moment when the dies were fitted, cleaned, replaced, and tested in the mint. And beyond the technical aspects lies the human element, the engravers who dedicated years to mastering their craft, the operators who monitored the minting lines, the inspectors whose eyes scanned thousands of coins each shift, ensuring quality and uniformity, and the designers who carried on the legacy of creating coins that reflect the identity of their nation, blending art, symbolism, and utility into a single circular canvas. And as the story expands, we find ourselves exploring how this coin represents the broader numismatic landscape of the early 2000s, a period defined by experimentation in commemorative issues, technological upgrades, and growing interest in coin collecting, driven by the ability of the internet to connect hobbyists across the world, fostering communities where millions of collectors could share knowledge, trades, discoveries, and passions. And through all these changes, the 2005 $1 remained a steadfast circulating issue, a symbol of stability in an era of transformation, continuing the long tradition of the kangaroo design, which had become an icon of Australian currency and a beloved emblem of national heritage. And as we look at this coin, we see not only its role in daily life, but also its significance in the timeline of Australian monetary history, marking a point where craftsmanship met modernization, where cultural identity met mass utility, and where ordinary citizens interacted with a piece of national art without ever stopping to consider the immense story carried within their pockets. And this is the beauty of coin history, that everyday objects become monumental once their stories unfold, revealing how something so small can hold the weight of a nation's journey through time, through achievement, through evolution, and through identity. And as we continue the exploration, we turn our attention to another layer of the story: how the 2005 $1 coin influenced future designs' minting strategies. Imagine holding a single coin in the palm of your hand, a small golden circle that looks simple at first glance, yet contains within it a story of national identity, artistic expression, economic change, and a quiet transformation that most people never realize they are carrying around every time they reach into their pocket. Imagine a coin that does not just represent one Australian dollar, but represents decades of thought, decisions, artistry, politics, minting, evolution, and the constant effort to define what it means to put a nation's heritage into metal. Welcome to Coins, where history comes alive through the treasures we carry. And today we begin an extraordinary journey deep into the world of the Australian $1 2007 coin. A coin whose year marked subtle shifts in design technique, minting technology, and the ongoing cultural narrative of Australia itself. As we go deeper into this history, you will see how a simple coin becomes a powerful storyteller, linking the past with the present and revealing secrets hidden in plain sight. The Australian $1 coin, first introduced in 1984, was created to replace the $1 banknote, a significant move driven by practical concerns about durability, cost, and the natural wear of everyday money. By the time we reach 2007, the coin has already lived over 2 decades of continuous circulation, but 2007 stands out as a year when both the Royal Australian Mint and the Perth Mint were operating under new pressures, new technologies, and new expectations from collectors and everyday users alike. The 2007 $1 coin continues the beloved design by Stuart Devlin, featuring the 5 bounding kangaroos, an image that has become instantly recognizable across the country and even internationally. This design was chosen because the kangaroo is perhaps the most iconic symbol of Australia, and Devlin, a master of metal art, was able to capture motion, energy, and national spirit in a way that remains one of the most successful circulating coin designs ever created. But beneath that familiar leap of kangaroos is a complex history of minting experiments, die adjustments, alloy consistency, and rising demand that shaped the story of the coin minted in that year's 2007 production period. Reflects an interesting mix of standard circulation, strikes, collector products, mint sets, and the increasing popularity of proof coins. These proof versions struck with extraordinary precision display the kangaroos with stunning clarity and polished detail, showing how the standard circulating design can take on a more refined artistic presence when struck using specially prepared dies and high-pressure techniques. Collectors know that the proof versions of the 2007 coin from the Royal Australian Mint represent some of the most visually appealing examples of Devlin's iconic artwork, yet the standard circulation coins tell a different story, one tied to the movements of the Australian economy, the fluctuating demand for coinage, and the high-volume output of the mint during this period. As Australia moved through the mid-2000s, the mining boom was reshaping the nation's economic landscape. Interest rates, inflation, and general population growth affected currency demand in subtle ways. The dollar coin became a workhorse of Australian commerce, constantly moving through the hands of millions, and the 2007 issue had to meet this demand with precise engineering and efficiently produced dies. The metal composition remained the same as previous years, a durable aluminum bronze alloy, giving the coin its warm golden color and making it highly resistant to wear, corrosion, and environmental damage. This alloy choice dates back to the earliest days of the $1 coin and reflects a careful balance between cost, longevity, and visual appeal. The Royal Australian Mint had refined the production process for this alloy by 2007, ensuring consistent color tone, even wear distribution, and high resistance to fading, which allowed the coins to maintain their luster longer compared to their earlier decades. In the obverse, the 2007 coin carries the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. Designed by Ian Rank Broadley, introduced in 1999, this portrait was notable for its realism and strength, showing the Queen with a more mature, dignified appearance, rather than the softer, stylized portraits of earlier years. Rank Broadley's work was intended to present a more contemporary and grounded representation, and by 2007 this portrait had become fully integrated into Australian coinage. The combination of Rank Broadley's obverse and Devlin's reverse design created one of the most recognizable and artistically balanced $1 coins in Australia's circulating currency history. The year 2007 also saw expansions in numismatic interest from collectors both within Australia and internationally. Mint sets from the year often included the $1 coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, and these sets became popular not only for their beauty, but also for the subtle year-to-year variations that historians and collectors love to explore. Die polishing differences, slight strike characteristics, and the number of coins produced are all key points of fascination. While the exact mintage figures depend on production records, the 2007 circulating $1 coins were produced in substantial quantities, reflecting stable national demand. Still, these coins remain highly collectible in higher grades, particularly those preserved in mint sets or recovered from rolls with exceptional strike quality. The cultural significance of the $1 coin during this time is also important. Australia's identity was evolving in the early 2000s with renewed discussions about national symbols, Indigenous representation, and the direction of national heritage initiatives, while the 2007 circulating coin maintained the kangaroo design. Other commemorative $1 issues minted in the same era reflected themes of Australian achievements, historical events, and cultural recognition. This makes the 2007 circulation piece not only part of the larger economic system, but also part of a broader artistic and symbolic timeline that would shape future Australian coinage decisions. By the time the 2007 dollar coin entered circulation, it served as a link across generations, people who remembered the introduction of the coin in the 1980s, young Australians receiving pocket money, travelers exploring the outback, and collectors tracking down sharp, detailed examples. Each had a connection to this object, and even if they never stopped to consider its story, the coin itself quietly carried its history through every exchange. The subtle shine of the aluminum bronze surface, the precise edges, the familiar kangaroo design, and the portrait of the Queen all formed a physical record of national continuity. When you follow the life of a single coin, you follow the life of the people who use it, and the 2007 $1 coin is no exception. In a world where small pieces of metal carry stories far deeper than their shine, there exists a coin that quietly bridges the past, the present, and the unfolding identity of a nation. The Australian $1 coin of 2008, a coin that most people have held, spent, or forgotten without ever realizing the complexity of history, artistry, politics, economy, and national character that rests within its golden surface. And today you are about to step into a journey that uncovers every layer of its creation, every decision that shaped it, and every moment in Australian history that echoes through its design, because the 2008 Australian $1 coin is far more than currency. It is an artifact of national evolution, a silent witness to the heartbeat of a country that has always balanced heritage with innovation. To truly understand the 2008 $1 coin, we must first step back to the roots of the Australian dollar itself. Born in 1984, when the $1 note was replaced by a coin, the shift was not merely a practical adjustment. It was a cultural moment, signaling Australia's embrace of durable modern currency while celebrating its own unique fauna through the iconic mob of kangaroos designed by Stuart Devlin. master jeweler whose artistic vision shaped decades of Australian coinage, and when this design continued into 2008, it carried with it nearly 25 years of national identity. Poured into a single circulating piece, the year 2008 sits at a fascinating crossroads in Australian minting history, a year shaped by economic transitions, global financial anxieties, and the Royal Australian Mint's deepening focus on quality production, advanced pressing technology, and a renewed commitment to commemorative designs. Even as the standard mob of ruse dominated circulation coins, the Mint found itself refining techniques, adjusting alloys, enhancing strike quality, and preparing for new technological expansions being developed behind the scenes. And the 2008 coin emerged during this exact transition, bridging a classic era of Australian design with a decade that would soon bring groundbreaking commemorative security measures and specialized minting initiatives. When we examine the 2008 coin's physical characteristics, we find the familiar aluminum-bronze alloy, the warm golden tone chosen not simply for beauty but for durability and corrosion resistance, reflecting a nation whose climate ranges from tropical humidity, desert dryness, and the mob of kangaroos remains the central feature, symbolizing movement vitality and the unmistakable uniqueness of the Australian continent. But beneath this familiar imagery, the 2008 strike carries subtle evidence of advances in die preparation, pressure distribution, and edge milling practices refined after years of mint experimentation and technological evolution. The obverse side carries the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Ian Rank, broadly a portrait introduced in 1999 and widely praised for its realistic, mature depiction of the monarch. Her gaze forward, her neckline defined, her features sharp and bold, unlike earlier effigies. The broadly portrait emphasized an unembellished honesty, a visual shift toward realism that reflected the late 20th century's preference for authenticity, and this effigy remained consistent on the 2008 issue, symbolizing continuity in a rapidly changing world. To understand the significance of the 2008 $1 coin, we must also explore the broader context of Australian society. During that year, Australia was experiencing an era of cultural openness, historical re-evaluation, and new national conversations, while simultaneously navigating the early turbulence of the global financial crisis. And coins minted during this time became unintentional markers of economic rhythm, tracking circulation speed, mint output adjustments, and shifts in public spending. Even the volume of $1 coins produced hints at the financial behaviors of the year, offering economists small but telling clues about national activity. Behind closed doors, the Royal Australian Mint was simultaneously expanding its research in automated sorting, die conditioning, improved engraving precision, and enhanced quality control systems, all of which influenced routine circulation coins, including the 2008 $1. These technological upgrades were not announced loudly, yet their fingerprints appear in strike consistency, rim stability, and metal flow patterns that collectors today identify when analyzing high-grade examples. Year 2008 also played a unique role for collectors because many pieces survived in excellent condition due to moderately high mint output levels combined with periods of reduced circulation flow as economic caution slowed consumer movement, resulting in a greater number of well-preserved examples reaching numismatic hands decades later. And this phenomenon gives the 2008 coin a special place among early 21st century issues, not rare but historically meaningful and essential for understanding minting patterns of its era. When we follow the coin into its life after production, we uncover its quiet role in everyday Australian life, slipping through the hands of commuters, travelers, students, cashiers, and families, becoming part of countless small stories, gas station mornings, schoolyard lunches, bus fare moments, and market purchases. And each of these tiny interactions forms an invisible archive of shared national experience, reminding us that the value of a coin is not in its face value, but in the human narrative it serves. Collectors often examine the 2008 $1 coin for specific markers such as die rotation possibilities, Slight variations in strike sharpness, mint luster patterns, and edge uniformity, and while the 2008 issue is generally stable without major known errors, its consistency itself reveals the maturity of the Royal Australian Mint's quality systems, at that time demonstrating how routine minting had become both technically advanced and artistically faithful to tradition. As we move deeper into analysis, we discover that this coin stands at a meaningful midpoint between the older decades dominated by foundational designs and the later years characterized by innovative commemoratives and circulating rarities such as the colored dollar issues, new effigies, and advanced security features, which began shaping Australian currency in the following decade. In this way, the 2008 coin becomes a turning point, a marker of stability before transformation, a reliable anchor in an era of modernization. The story of the 2008 Australian $1 coin is not only about metal design or manufacture, it is about Australia itself, its identity, its pride, its wildlife, its monarchy, its economy, its artistry, and its evolving relationship with national symbolism. And when the mob of kangaroos leaps across the reverse side, it represents more than fauna. It represents the unstoppable momentum of a nation, always moving forward, always adapting, always carving its own path on the global stage. So as you join this journey through the history, craftsmanship, cultural weight, and national significance of the Australian $1 coin from 2008, prepare to see a familiar object in an entirely new light, because behind its modest golden glow lies a sweeping story of artistry, technology, resilience, and identity. A story worthy of exploration, reflection, and appreciation. A story that turns a simple coin into a 2-hour adventure across time, heritage, and the spirit of Australia. Imagine holding a coin so ordinary that millions pass it by every single day, yet inside that tiny circle of metal lies a story filled with power, history, artistry, national pride, and economic change. And when you look closer, you find that the 2009 Australian $1 coin is not just a simple piece of currency, but a silent witness to a year of transition for a nation, a minting era filled with precision and innovation, and a design that carries over 3 decades of cultural identity. This is the journey of a coin that may sit unnoticed in your pocket right now, yet behind the scenes it represents a rich and layered world of craftsmanship, rarity, possibilities, and heritage. As we enter this story, you will discover why collectors search for certain variations, why historians trace the shifts in minting output, and why even the most common $1 coin from 2009 can open a window into Australia's evolving economic landscape. So take a deep breath, because today we are diving into the complete professional history of the Australian $1 coin of 2009, a history that stretches far beyond the year stamped on its surface. Its tale truly begins long before 2009. Because to understand this coin, you must first understand the journey of the Australian $1 itself. Launched in 1984 to replace the $1 banknote, the new denomination arrived with a powerful identity presented through Stuart Devlin's signature design featuring 5 bounding kangaroos. Devlin, the goldsmith to the Queen, wanted the coin to radiate motion, life, and a uniquely Australian essence. The kangaroos became more than artwork, they became a circulating national emblem, and by the time 2009 arrived, the design was already a cultural icon recognized instantly across the globe. But Australia in 2009 was facing a world changed by global financial turbulence, a shifting metal market, and new minting priorities. And the coins produced that year reflect all of it. Royal Australian Mint in Canberra stood at the center of this production, carefully balancing the needs of circulation with the demands of collectors and the pressure of economic uncertainty. The $1 coin for 2009 was struck primarily in aluminum bronze, an alloy that had proven reliable since the denomination's introduction. Durable, yet warm in color, lightweight, yet visually strong, and chosen to withstand decades of handling. The alloy blend gives the coin its distinctive golden appearance, linking Every year of issue into a unified visual story that collectors immediately recognize. The obverse carried the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, sculpted by Ian Rank, broadly introduced in 1999, and still used proudly in 2009 with sharper features, a more realistic portrayal, and a better sense of presence than previous effigies. This portrait was struck with precision, creating a clean contrast between the raised reliefs and the smooth fields surrounding them. The engravers at the Mint ensured that every detail, from the subtle curls of the hair to the crisp lettering of Elizabeth to Australia to 09, aligned perfectly. On the reverse, Devlin's kangaroos continued their timeless leap, symbolizing the spirit of a nation constantly moving forward. The design's textured style, the interplay of light and shadow, the lively arrangement of the 5 rows, and the compact balance of the layout all contributed to a sense of depth and personality. The Mint's process in 2009 included advanced dye preparation techniques and more refined quality control, ensuring that even high-volume circulation coins retained strong striking clarity. This year also saw the continuation of the Mint's practice of releasing mint set strikes and proof strikes, specially polished and struck multiple times to bring out mirror-like surfaces and intricate detailing. These collector coins provide an elevated version of the standard design, making the 2009 proof and uncirculated sets essentials. Dedicated numismatists. Mint numbers matter greatly for collectors, and 2009 is a year that sparks certain interest. Though not considered the rarest year, it remains important for pattern tracking and for identifying subtle variations that can occasionally appear due to dye wear, striking pressure, or handling conditions. The Royal Australian Mint produced millions of $1 coins for circulation, ensuring a strong national supply. But because 2009 saw increased focus on commemorative releases for other denominations, the $1 kangaroo coin holds a steady position in the timeline of average mintage, rather than peaking in volume. This balance contributes to its collectability today because, while widely available high-grade examples, those in mint state or proof condition, remain desirable, especially due to the coin's age, now passing well over a decade. In the world of circulation, this coin traveled everywhere, from busy markets to remote outback regions, from coastal cities to small-town shops, changing hands thousands of times and building a silent map of Australian life. Each coin tells a personal story, some acquiring scratches from vending machines, some developing smooth edges from years in pockets, some retaining sharp brilliance because they spent years forgotten in jars. 2009 coins often show a beautiful range of wear patterns, each reflecting individual histories beyond the mint itself. The year carried historical and cultural weight. Australia was navigating global economic ripple effects, yet maintained stability. The tourism sector was shifting, the mining industry was expanding, and the dollar coin circulated through every corner of the economy, acting as a practical tool connecting all levels of daily life. Every purchase, every exchange, every donation, every moment where this coin traveled contributed another invisible layer to the living history of the 2009 $1 piece. Collectors today examine these coins closely, looking at strike quality, metal tone, surface luster, and potential errors. Among the most sought after are broad strikes, off-center strikes, clipped plankets, and die cracks, which occasionally occur and become valuable due to their uniqueness. Though not common in 2009, they exist, and they tell another side of the mint story, showing the mechanical nature of coin production and the fascinating imperfections that make certain pieces stand out. The year thus minting environment was highly controlled, reducing these anomalies, but the few that exist elevate the year's numismatic interest even further. The economic significance of the coin is just as interesting. The $1 denomination has always played a key role in daily commerce, replacing the more fragile banknote decades earlier and proving far more durable and cost-effective. By 2009, the $1 coin had already shown long-term resilience as inflation shifts purchasing trends and digital payments slowly rise. The physical dollar remains a trusted instrument, and the 2009 issue represents a moment when traditional cash was still overwhelmingly dominant before tap-and-go technology began reshaping spending behavior. The value of the coin is not only monetary, but symbolic, representing a stable national currency tied to Australia's rich financial heritage. This history leads into the broader numismatic atmosphere of 2009, where collectors were becoming increasingly global. Online marketplaces were expanding, and information about mintages, varieties, and grading became more accessible than ever. The 2009 $1 coin found a place in this growing digital collecting world, reaching enthusiasts far beyond Australia. People fascinated by the kangaroo design, by Rank Broadley's portrait, or by the evolution of late 2000s minting technology sought out these coins, building collections that tell not just national stories, but international ones. The year also sits between key transitional points in Australian coinage history, bridging earlier decades dominated by consistent output and later years defined by more frequent commemoratives and experimental designs. Imagine holding a coin that looks simple, small, and ordinary, yet carries within it the story of a nation, its art, its economy, its milestones, and its quiet revolutions. The Australian $1 2010 coin is one of those pieces that millions of people have touched, thousands have collected, and only a few have ever stopped to truly understand. And in this journey we dive deep into the year 2010, a year that reshaped Australia's currency landscape in ways most people never noticed, a year that produced a coin surrounded by subtle mysteries, careful decisions, and a design legacy stretching all the way back to 1984, when the iconic kangaroos first began their leap across the face of the nation's signature dollar piece. But now imagine the world in 2010. The global economy was still recovering from the shockwaves of the financial crisis. Governments worldwide were navigating uncertainty, and the Royal Australian Mint was adjusting its production strategies, responding to demand patterns, and introducing new minting technologies, all while continuing the long-running tradition of striking the circulating $1 coin that millions would use every single day. And among these circulators, the 2010 issue stands out, not because of loud dramatic changes, but because of the quiet precision, the consistent craftsmanship, and the unique place it occupies in a decade defined by experimentation and refinement. The 2010 $1 coin carried the beloved 5 bounding kangaroos, created by the legendary designer Stuart Devlin, a motif that had already become a national symbol, linking Australia's currency identity to one of its most recognizable animals. And as the mint pressed millions of these coins, the fine details in the kangaroo's muscular forms, the spacing of their leaps, and the smooth flow of the background fields represented the mint's pursuit of perfection, using advanced die preparation and improved metal quality to ensure cleaner strikes and sharper finishes. Collectors often overlook 2010 as a standard year, but hidden beneath that plain label is a story of controlled mintages, technological transitions, and unexpected varieties that have caught the attention of specialists over the years. Because in 2010, the mint had to balance circulating demand with commemorative projects, and that meant determining minting volumes with care, leading to production runs that were steady yet far from the highest on record, giving today's collectors something intriguing to chase, especially when searching for high-grade examples or the rare chance at a notable error. And this is where the deeper history begins. The story of every coin is also the story of its era, and in 2010, Australia was leaning into modernization, shifting more transactions into electronic systems and slowly reducing the heavy need for large volumes of physical cash. But cash remained dominant enough that the $1 coin still had enormous circulation value. And every piece created in 2010 was part of that living system, moving through grocery stores, vending machines, parking meters, and pockets across the continent. And as millions of people used these coins without ever thinking twice, the Royal Australian Mint preserved its reputation for quality, controlling metals, weight tolerances, and die life monitoring to ensure that every 2010 dollar piece would meet strict national standards. These details shaped the character of the coin, and every single 2010 issue carries that fingerprint of precision. Today, collectors often speak about the 2010 $1 coin in the context of grade rarity, because while the year itself is common in circulation, The number of surviving pieces in pristine mint state forms is far smaller than people expect. The harsh realities of circulation wear, the scratching of pockets, and the constant friction in cash handling systems mean that high grades of the 2010 dollar coin are difficult to secure, especially those with crisp luster original surfaces and full detail on the kangaroo relief, and this makes the 2010 issue an unexpectedly challenging target for advanced collectors who understand that a common year does not always mean common quality. And as the story unfolds, we also explore the wider timeline of Australian currency, the evolution from pre-decimal money to the modern dollar system, the introduction of the aluminum-bronze composition, and the reasons behind choosing this durable golden-toned alloy for everyday use. Then we connect this journey to the production philosophy of the mint during the late 2000s and early 2010s, an era marked by improved minting machinery, enhanced die steel, and better quality assurance procedures, allowing coins like the 2010 dollars to maintain longevity and consistent artistic detail even after years of heavy circulation. The 2010 $1 coin also carries the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Ian Rank, broadly a design introduced in 1999 and used for more than 2 decades across Australian coinage. This portrait, with its sharper contours, lifelike expression, and contemporary style, symbolized a long chapter in Australia's royal portrait history and anchors the 2010 coin firmly within that era of design continuity. But behind the portrait and kangaroo design lies the deeper narrative, the one that makes the 2010 coin more than metal, the story of national identity. The story of how a simple circulating dollar becomes a record of economic trends, public behavior, minting advancements, and cultural symbolism. Each of these elements weaves a thread into the life of the coin, giving you enough layers to expand into our exploration, from the origin of the kangaroo design to the metallurgical makeup to the minting pressures of the year to the evolving role of cash in the Australian financial landscape. The 2010 $1 coin offers a surprisingly rich history, with every detail capable of becoming its own chapter. And as we go deeper, you will see how this coin holds far more than its face value. It holds the imprint of 2010 itself, a snapshot of a nation in transition and a continuation of a numismatic legacy that has shaped collectors for generations. And this is the story we begin today, a story meant to pull you and hold your attention and reveal the hidden world behind a small golden coin that millions carry yet few truly understand.